So, like, one of my closest and best friends, who I consider to be really important to me, and who got me through some really shit, like, probably the hardest point in my life, and I probably would have killed myself if he hadn't been there, basically just broke up with me because he's, you know, brainwashed. And, he has been taking this latest election thing very hard. Because, again, brainwashed. And I made the mistake of telling him the truth. And boy, did he not take that well. It's partially my fault. It's too soon. It's too soon. You know, it's not, you know, I should have known better than to tell someone who their cult has made them to believe their life is now at risk for no reason. I should have known better than to tell them, hey, everything you believe is fucking stupid and you've been lied to and manipulated and everything you believe is wrong and everything's gonna be fucking fine. Chill the fuck out. Should have known probably like the day after he was told the devil got elected president because his cult has been instilling and drilling into his brain for the last fucking decade that the other party is literally the devil. And, you know, why wouldn't he believe them? So, maybe I should have waited a couple of time until after he was able to fucking simmer the fuck down. But regardless, in the midst of him having a fucking conniption fit like a spoiled child, he asked me a question that was like, do you admit that cis white male privilege exists? And I like the way he says that. Because it's not, do you think cis white male privilege exists? It's, do you admit it? Because saying it like that means it demonstrably and objectively exists, and if you don't admit it, you're just in denial. You're delusional. So that's like great tech right there. I'm gonna have to remember them. Do you admit that there is a flying spaghetti monster? Or are you one of those people who says, no, there's no such thing as the flying spaghetti monster? Ugh. But anyway, and the second thing about it was I actually had to sit there and think about it for a while because I was like, no, but it's a kind of a nuanced subject, and you're like, I don't believe it in the simplified, binary, objectivist way that you think it exists, but it's definitely something that can be discussed. But total black and white, that's not going to be acceptable. So I had to go, tell him what he wants to believe, because this is before the fucking shit hit the fan. So I was like, sure. And it made me start thinking about it, because I was like, it's actually a fun idea to kind of break down, because the question of privilege, as it is used by the people who use it, is a dramatic oversimplification of a variety of really complex and interesting societal factors that I do think is something that should be analyzed and discussed by, informed, skeptical people who are willing to look at it from a detached perspective and really try and figure out all the different nuances around it. Someone who thinks everyone hates me because I am a minority, not someone who is capable of having a really nuanced outlook about that. And again, not his fault. His cult told him everyone hates you because you're a minority, and he was like, oh, well, yeah. checks out, because he was looking around and seeing everyone who went, I don't know, Sean, like, frig, you know how fucking religions treat fucking heretics? There you go, that's really the key factor, because, like, they're discouraged from having any degree of independent or skeptical thoughts, because if they do, they're labeled a fucking heretic or a blasphemer, and just have their lives fucking destroyed by people they thought were their friends. So they do this to people because they're told to do it, and because they're rewarded for doing it, and then they think, oh shit, I can't have an independent thought like he did, because then my friends will start trying to destroy my life. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to be punished I don't want to have my life fucking ruined by people that I share values with and who I think of as friends and allies. So I'll just fucking turn it off. Turn it the fuck off. Can't allow any outward independent thought of, like, hey, maybe the fucking situation's a little bit more complicated than you've been led to believe it is. I can't have that. But anyway, like, it is a fun thing to think about, because calling it privilege makes it sound simple, and it's kind of not simple, but, like, does cis white male privilege exist? Depending on where you are, and depending on who you are, yeah. If you live in a place where it is socially viewed that cis white men are of a higher social value, then if you go there as a cis white man, yeah, you're going to have more opportunities presented to you than if you're not those things, or all three of those things. But you have to also look at the question of why that is. And that's not allowed. Can't think of why, because the reason is because racism, because sexism, because simple answer to a complicated question. It's like religion. It really is. It's a religion, because religion says there is one answer to every question, and the answer is because God. Why does the sun come up? Because God. Why is there a rainbow? Because God. Why does grass look green? Because God. All of the interesting scientific explanations of, like, fucking light reflection and pigmentation, no, don't think about that. It's God. So why does being a cis white man provide privileges? Because when you look at privileges, like, what's the definition of privileges? It's getting something without really earning it, right? I mean, like, that should be the fundamental first step, is define your terms. What does privilege mean to you? What do you think privilege means? When you say, does cis white male privilege exist, what are you talking about? And to me, my understanding of it is privilege is getting something without doing anything to earn it. If your parents were rich and you are given their fortune, that is a privilege. You have been privileged with wealth that you have done nothing to earn. They aren't privileged if it's not something that they inherited. If they earned their fortune, if they worked and toiled and made smart decisions and got lucky and earned that fortune, and now they're rich, they're not privileged. They earned that money. It came to them because they worked towards it and earned it. The children who inherit that money without having done any work whatsoever, they're the privileged ones. So that's my understanding of the term privilege. Getting something without really doing anything to earn it. And so the suggestion that you get privileges based on your race or gender or sexual orientation comes down to where you are. Because depending on your location, you are going to be given things without really earning it, based on prejudice. That's what it comes down to. When someone looks at you and they prejudge you without knowing anything about you based on superficial aspects such as your appearance and all that stuff, and they think, oh, based on my experiences and what I've been told, I can expect this kind of behavior and this kind of work ethic or et cetera, from this kind of person, so I'm going to give the, like, their, let's just say application, because I struggle to think of a better word, more value over someone who does not fit these, like, superficial criteria, I guess. Criteria, I don't know. But if you go to Japan, just to be completely, lowbrow with it, I guess. If you go to Japan and you're a white guy, you don't get shit. In fact, if you go to some places in Japan, you get treated like garbage. There's, like, some districts in fucking, like, Tokyo, Japan, not, like, the city Tokyo. You know how New York is a city in the state of New York, but the state of New York is way bigger? There's, like, fucking prefectures and shit in Tokyo. So, like, in the place where Tokyo is, but isn't the city of Tokyo, if you go there and you're a gaijin, if you're a foreigner, even if you speak immaculate fucking Japanese, you will be refused service. You will be if you try and engage anyone in conversation, it will completely laugh you off and ignore you or hurl slurs at you and just completely you will receive no basic fundamental respect as a human being, even though you're a cis white male. Because where you are being prejudged, and based on the experiences and social expectations of the area you are in, they prejudge you and say, oh, this person meets this superficial criteria, and thus he has no value as a human being to me, because only these people who fit this superficial criteria has social value to me. So anyone who isn't this, fuck you. If you go to fucking South Africa, I'd love to hear someone go to South Africa and tell me that which is the one with apartheid? I believe it's South Africa, right? Yeah, I would love to see you fucking go to South Africa and tell me that cis white male privilege exists, or the place where they got rid of apartheid. I don't know. I'm broadly generalizing here. I would love to see you go to. In fact, that's such a, like, cis white male, like, that's a massive broadening of terms. Because what do you mean by white? Do you mean British? Because if you're British and you go to Ireland, especially near the border of Northern Ireland, you're not going to be treated with a lot of respect. And I mean, like, people act like, oh, it's just skin color, but no, if you go to places where it's just white people, like, people have never let skin color be the only excuse to hate one another. It's just the most obviously readily apparent one to go for, but groups of people who are both white hate each other, even though they're both white. Like, fucking the Scots and the fucking English have never needed the excuse of, oh, you have a different skin color from me, to fucking hate each other. The English and the French have never needed the excuse of, oh, you have a different skin color than me, to fucking hate each other. You go to fucking France as an Englishman, guess what privileges you're gonna get? Not a lot, because they fucking hate English people, especially if you go back in time. Nowadays it's a little bit better, but you go back in time, nuh-uh. Like, you will actually probably get killed. Go to the fucking Middle East and tell me you got cis white male privilege. It's completely ridiculous. Or go to Africa, where genocide is just happening every other weekend because of religious reasons and because of ethnic reasons. Ethnicities of groups of people who are both black, who are both African or killing each other because they're different ethnicities. So much fucking privilege, am I right? It's just this completely, like, binary, oversimplified thing where, do you think cis white male privilege exists? In general? No, because if you fucking round it up, it's really only a few select places, and I don't live in one of those places. I live in California. It used to be Mexico! It used to be Mexico! Guess who gets the most fucking social value? Fucking Latinos. Because A, that's the majority of the population over here. B, it's mostly it's a blue state. So they're really fucking immigration friendly. Ironically enough. And they'll work for really cheap. So, like, I guess you could argue that's not exactly a privilege, but in this economy, even getting a job, period, regardless of what it pays, is definitely a privilege. I don't know how you could argue that getting a job based on your physical appearance isn't a privilege just because it's a Latino person getting the job because of their appearance. A white person getting a job because of their appearance is a privilege, but a Latino person getting their job because of their appearance isn't. There's Latino privilege down here. It just depends on where you go. Go to fucking Compton, guess what? Not a lot of cis white male privilege there. Guess what? Black business owners in a black neighborhood are going to want to hire other black people. And if a white person comes in and says, here's my resume, that resume is not going to automatically go on the top of the pile and given more value than the others because that person's white. In fact, regardless of like, in many situations, that white person could be the most qualified applicant available by a wide margin, and it still will be said, like, nah, fucking can't hire a cracker around here. Even if it might be a good idea, based on where we live, it just, even if, like, I don't have anything against it, even if I don't personally believe that, you know, even if I, the business owner, am colorblind, I have to acknowledge that the demographic, the location of where I live is not, and it would not be a smart business decision for me to hire this person because they're a white person. The suggestion that A, you would deny that would happen, for one thing. B, that you would say that that's not an example of privilege in action. Or C, that if the races were reversed and it was a super, like, redneck location and a white business owner and a black guy came into the application, he was dramatically overqualified, and they go, he would be the best person for the job and I can't hire him because of the demographics of where I live, that just wouldn't be considered acceptable. I personally don't have a problem with it, but it's just a smart business decision to not house him. That would be racist and unacceptable, and that's bad and super condemnable. But the opposite example, you're oversimplifying a really complicated scenario. Like, it's the same thing with gender roles, too, where why are certain expectations prescribed to someone based on gender? Because hundreds of thousands of years ago, I might be overshooting it. I'm always very broad and exaggeratory with my time frames, but, like, back in the inception of the species, when we were still nomadic in nature, when we were still tribal individuals who did not have the concept of civilization yet, the men were bigger and stronger, so they went out and hunted the big fucked up things that can kill you if you fuck up at hunting them, and the women who, you know, could have the children and were smarter and more agile in some cases and had the reproductive resource, something like that. It always sounds bad when I forget what the fucking word is. And they had the ability to say, like, nah, I don't want to fuck you. They would go for the fucking person that they were like, yeah, I want to have babies with that guy. They stayed home and raised the children and defended the homestead and went out and gathered shit and took care of all that stuff. Not because, oh, you're a woman, that's what you have to do. Oh, you're a guy, that's what you have to do. It was because, okay, if we don't do this, we're going to die. If you go out and try and hunt dudes, it's not going to end well for you, so it's best if you stay here and do the shit that needs to be done here. And if you try and like go out and find shit or rear the homestead, it's also not going to go well. So you fucking go out and hunt the dudes, or we're going to die. If we do not have this fair distribution of labor to maintain our existence, we're going to die. And those expectations of, okay, you gotta do this and I gotta do this because if we don't, we'll fucking die, carried over into when we started putting down roots and started forming societies and started practicing agriculture and started making colonies and said, okay, well, it's kind of a different method of sustaining ourselves, but we basically gotta keep doing the same thing because we haven't invented the cell phone yet, so it's still kind of rough. Keep doing the things that kept us alive this long. And, oh shit, we continue to survive. No reason to change. I mean, why should we change? It's not killing us, so might as well keep doing it. Fast forward hundreds of thousands of years, now we're here today. Yeah, there's a little bit of a social evolution and biological evolution that says this is the shit that makes sense to do. And you're right that in this day and age, it's not necessary for survival for the genders to, you know, live in those roles, to perform those roles in order to maintain the tribe or the homestead. And you're right, now we have the privilege to say, oh, I'm a woman, but I want to go out and hunt things. Because now we have guns and access to advanced medical care, so that gives me a much higher advantage over the guys who had to fight with a fucking, like, fur skin over their fucking junk and a fucking pointy fucking stick. So yeah, now you have the privilege of modern technology to allow you to go, I want to go do what the guys are doing. And men have the freedom to go like, I want to stay home and take care of the kids, and I want to fucking tend to the homestead and just forage for shit, and don't want to have to deal with the responsibility of going out and bringing home the fucking meat to the table. And like defending the tribe from invading fucking other tribes. Guess what? Now we don't have to worry about fucking wolves coming in and eating us at night, depending on where you live. And you can just go to the supermarket, and the wife can earn just as much currency in order to exchange for food as a guy can. So a guy is perfectly able to stay home if that's what he wants. Because now you have the privilege of not having your life be on the line if you don't do those things. So you're right, the idea of still conforming to those expectations isn't necessary anymore, but to take that issue and say, oh, it's just sexism. One answer to every question. God did it. It's just sexism. It's not this snowball effect of hundreds of thousands of years of social and biological evolution that allowed the species to survive until the point where it no longer needs the things it needed to survive until now. No, it's just sexism. It's privilege. That's the thing that bothers me about it. It's taking something interesting and complicated that can be discussed. I'm not saying that I'm right. Like my interpretation is the correct one. You can definitely argue with me. I'm definitely not the most informed person when it comes to the subject matter. And you can disagree with me based on factual things or just a perspective basis, like, no, I live over here and I've been exposed to these people and this is what I believe. I think we do still need those societal roles in order to survive, just because of the conveniences of modern technology and like social progression doesn't mean we don't still need to those things. Like, there's no way that if we stopped doing it, suddenly we're still gonna be fine. Things could suddenly start breaking down. Maybe conforming to the way it's always been is the only thing keeping it as good as it is. And I'd be like, you know what, sir? Like, I don't have any data that fucking would contradict that viewpoint, because we don't know. We don't know what would happen because it kind of hasn't really happened yet. We haven't faced a complete social breakdown yet. So, like, I want to have that conversation. I want to have that conversation where, like, okay, well, here's what I think based on my perspective and the information that I have and the life experience that I've gained. And, well, here's mine, and it disagrees with you, and here's what I think. Oh, I can see why you would think that, but, like, have you considered this? Yes, but have you considered this? And I understand why you would say that, but here's why I disagree with it. And we can just have that dialogue. But the do you admit that cis white male privilege exists? That's not a dialogue. That's, I'm right, and if you disagree with me, you're an idiot, and clearly you think I'm just some angry minority shouting racism even though affirmative action makes my life better, because if you disagree with me, that's what you are, because there are two different kinds of people in the world, people who agree with me and people who don't, and that is what people who don't agree with me are. So if you don't agree with me, that's you, and I don't want to be friends with you anymore. That's not a viewpoint that has any value to me. I admit that I can be wrong. I admit that many of the things I believe to be true are probably wrong. Because that's, like, how can you ever be open to changing your mind if you don't admit that the things you believe could be fallible? I want to change my mind. I want to be proven wrong. I want to be shown an alternate viewpoint that makes more sense than what I think. And I want to start thinking that. And then I want to keep thinking that's true, but also open to fallibility, and so I can be open to alternate viewpoints to change my mind from that. Because how can you go through your life just thinking the same thing? If I did that, I would still be, like, I wouldn't be with the person I'm with now who makes me happy, because I wouldn't even know what homosexuality is, let alone be accepting of the suggestion that I could lean that way. I wouldn't even know what it is. I wouldn't know that it's even possible for two people of the same gender to be together, because I wasn't exposed to that idea in my formative years. I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. If I never changed my mind, I would still think that. I would still be like, what? What? And then if I didn't change my mind, that's where it would stop. I wouldn't continue to think about it and go like, oh yeah, maybe that's a good thing, or oh no, I don't like that. I would just keep going, oh, that's not a thing. That's not a thing that exists in the world. Because I wouldn't be able to change my mind. I would still believe in a fucking super divine deity. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. We went to church every single week. I was bored to tears. And I thought, hey, gods exists. One time I was driving to like an appointment. Total other story there. For treatment. Anyway, I was driving to a thing with my mom because I was a child and couldn't drive, and she could tell something was bothering me, which is funny to me in retrospect. and I just wouldn't say what was bothering me, and she literally pulled the car over and said, "We're not moving until you tell me what's wrong." And after a little bit, I finally opened up about what was bothering me, and I said, "I hate God," and I collapsed into her lap, sobbing and crying, because the way I had been raised was that's a blasphemous thought to even have, obviously, and it goes against what I had believed up to that point, that God is a benevolent, loving being. How can you possibly hate him? Because, like, oh, I'm sure I don't remember even why I thought that, but I'm sure it was like, oh, suffering exists, all the typical shit. If I never changed my mind, I would never even gotten to that point. I would never have even had the self-awareness to look around and have the thought occur that I don't like God, let alone progress to the point where I'd be like, oh, God doesn't exist. That explains that shit. If I never changed my mind, I would have never been open to social justice values and outlooks, which I was for a couple years. I was a total SJW for a couple years. I totally believed in all that thing. I totally believed in privilege. I totally believed in, like, just rampant sexism. I was a complete drone. And if I never changed my mind, I never even would have been, let alone gotten over it. Like, how can you say you would never change your mind? That seems like an arbitrary cutoff date to me, because you didn't always believe the things you believe in now, do you? You say, I'm never going to change my mind about the things I believe now, but you didn't used to believe those things. You used to believe other things, and these new beliefs, replace those old beliefs. So, why is this the arbitrary cutoff date? Obviously, you are capable of changing your mind. You've already done it before. You can keep going. It's okay. You can keep going and changing your mind. But no, it's a complete rejection. Admit that cis white male privilege exists. Admit that my viewpoint and belief is infallibly and objectively correct. No. I won't admit that. And if that's enough for you to say, okay, then we're no longer friends, never speak to me again, good riddance.